Happy Thanksgiving. I'm Brian Valentino, and I'll be talking to you today about a little bit what goes on at the White House during Thanksgiving. Today is Thanksgiving Eve 2016, and the President of the United States has just pardoned his very last turkey, as part of the tradition of pardoning a turkey on Thanksgiving goes. Next year, President Trump will get to decide whether he wants to continue that tradition or not, and we'll have to wait until next Thanksgiving to find out how that turns out. But I thought it would be good for us to spend a few minutes just talking about how Thanksgiving came to be a national holiday, a little bit about behind some of the traditions that go on at the White House, and how the first family typically spends Thanksgiving. So first, let's just consider the fact that the United States and Canada are really two of the only countries in the world who have a formal national holiday celebrating Thanksgiving. And sure, in every country it's a little bit different. Some of the cultural holidays would replace what we would typically call Thanksgiving. But as any kid who grew up in an American school knows, the first Thanksgiving was celebrated by the Pilgrims in Massachusetts to thank God for the blessings that He bestowed on them on their voyage across the Atlantic Ocean and in their first year here in the New World. The tradition of celebrating a national holiday as Thanksgiving is really a presidential tradition. President George Washington issued the very first proclamation calling on Americans to celebrate Thanksgiving as a holiday way back in his very first term in office in the 1780s. It became a nationally set holiday that was celebrated on the same day every year, with President Lincoln who called on Americans to celebrate the last Thursday in November as Thanksgiving. And the last time that date changed was with President Franklin Roosevelt, who designated the fourth Thursday in November as Thanksgiving, and the date has remained fixed there ever since. But the tradition of issuing a Thanksgiving proclamation has continued annually since President Washington. In fact, President Obama will sign his proclamation for the 2016 Thanksgiving season probably today. If he didn't do it at the turkey pardoning, it'll happen during the day today, and then that'll become a nationally posted proclamation, which, if you don't know, any American can write to the White House and ask for a copy of that. And any proclamation that the president signs, you can ask for a copy of, and you get a nice big copy with the presidential seal on it and signed by the president. But everybody thinks of the White House and Thanksgiving in terms of the traditional pardoning of the turkey, which is kind of a tradition that is murky at best. We can go back as far as the early presidents knowing that they celebrated Thanksgiving with a traditional fall menu, which would, of course, involve some sort of fowl or poultry. There's records in newspapers going back to the years right after the Civil War of presidents being presented gifts of turkey and other poultry items from thankful and appreciative citizens. But nowadays, going back to the 1940s with President Harry Truman, the turkey is donated by the National Turkey Federation and from time to time by the National Egg Board or the National Poultry Board. But the very first president who formally pardoned the turkey was President George Herbert Walker Bush in 1989. It seems like it's an older tradition than that, but it really isn't. We've celebrated that formal pardoning since 1989, although there are presidents on record going back to JFK of having let the turkey continue to live a life of religious fulfillment rather than ending up on the White House dinner table. But President Bush was the very first one to, quote unquote, pardon a turkey. And that has been a tradition that school children and even grown-ups look forward to every year. So this year the president will be pardoning two turkeys named Tater and Tot. The names are nominated by school children and selected by the White House in the weeks heading up into the Thanksgiving holidays. The National Turkey Federation will will designate a farm somewhere in America to raise a flock of turkeys that will eventually be willowed down to the two that are presented to the president. This year, it was a family farm in Iowa that was designated to raise the flock. And of all those turkeys, Tater, Tater and Tot were the eventual winners. I guess the tradition from when I worked in the White House under the Clinton administration has changed. The tradition used to be that one turkey got pardoned and went on to live its life, and the other turkey was returned for destinations unknown. But if you were to go back to the years of the Trumans and the Eisenhowers, it was those turkeys were intended for the president to eat, and they did end up on the White House dinner table on Thanksgiving. That doesn't happen anymore. The turkeys are now released to the good offices of the Virginia Polytechnic Institute. Virginia Tech has a turkey farm called Gobbler's Rest, where the pardoned turkeys go out and live out their natural days, which, as I understand it, are not very long. Domestic turkeys are raised for their breast meat. They are really unhealthy for living as a turkey. They're really healthy for us to eat as turkeys, but not for their longevity. So they tend to not live out the year down at Virginia Tech, from what I understand. If you're looking for a great video clip, and I'll try to attach it to this video, the West Wing series did a episode where President Bartlett had to twice pardon turkeys because there was a snafu with the staff, and the president was concerned that by pardoning so many turkeys that he would have a reputation as being soft on turkeys. We now look back at that as, harken back on that as lighter-hearted days of yore. That's hardly even funny these days. But I think we should also pause for a second, if we're going to be political scientists, and realize that the president really doesn't have the power to pardon a turkey. The president can pardon someone, a citizen or an individual, for crimes or for convictions, but for anything up to and including anything below the level of impeachment. So unless that turkey has been charged with some crime, the president's power of pardon is really symbolic and just something for us to kind of enjoy. It's a lighthearted moment as we kick off the holiday season. So let's end with just a quick look at what the First Family does for Thanksgiving. It's one of those holidays where the president does kind of get to pick and choose what he wants to do and where he wants to go with his family. For those presidents who have traditional family homes, whether it be a ranch or a home that's able to accommodate a large number of people, they'll usually return to those locations. It wasn't uncommon for President Johnson or Lyndon Johnson to return to his ranch in Texas, or for President Reagan to go back to his house in California. But a lot of times the presidents and their families, especially in modern times, will adjourn to Camp David in Maryland, which will give them some seclusion and a lot of room for family and friends to come visit with them. And of course, the White House operation goes wherever the president goes. So what will typically happen is the White House kitchens and the White House chef will prepare a proposed menu based on what they know the family likes to eat. That is typically sent to the First Lady to review. The First Lady would review it, make notes, and send them back, tweaking the menu or making other suggestions if appropriate. One great story goes back to when Jimmy Carter was president. The chef made a menu of things that they thought that the First Family would enjoy, and First Lady Rosalind Carter sent it back and had crossed out the line that the chef had recommended buttered peas, stating that, quote, Jimmy doesn't like green peas. So I imagine there was another vegetable on the table other than those peas. And of course, President George Herbert Walker Bush was famous for his dislike of broccoli. So my guess is there wasn't broccoli on the White House table either. But other than that, it's usually low-key. There's not a lot of media coverage of the president enjoying Thanksgiving with his family, other than to note where the president is. Presidents try real hard to not impact the staff too much, because obviously if the president is traveling, a lot of people have to go with him, military personnel who provide logistics support, plus key White House staff, national security staff, domestic staff, all have to travel with the president, and when he's on the road. So to go someplace far from the White House would remove those people from their own families on Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter or whatever holiday they're celebrating. So I know that there is at least a lot of consideration that goes into, does the first family have to celebrate the holiday on the holiday, which would allow, if they were to move it, say Thanksgiving, there's Thanksgiving feast to Friday, that would allow the largest number of people to celebrate their own holiday with their families, and then come in on Friday to help the first family enjoy their holiday. But as a former White House staffer, I'll tell you, your dedication is to the office and not the man. Although there are certainly a lot of people who are dedicated to the individual holding the office, but as a White House staffer, we're dedicated to the office of the presidency. And if the president needs the support of the staff on Thanksgiving Thursday, well, then that's what you do, because you're serving the country and you're serving the president. And you're proud to do it. It's an honor to serve. So with that, I'll just say that I'm thankful for the fact that I got to serve my country and my president. I'm thankful for my family and a great job and a wonderful community that surrounds me, of family and friends and fellow Americans who are working for the best for our country. I'd ask you all to say a special prayer for our president-elect and for all of our service people serving overseas, and a special reminder that there's police officers and firefighters and EMTs and nurses and doctors and people who work in electric utilities and water utilities and all kinds of infrastructure that keep us safe, happy, and healthy, that work around the clock, 24/7, 365. And I'd ask you to keep them in your thoughts and prayers, since they won't be with their families on Thanksgiving and certainly would rather be there than at work. They too serve our country, and they serve us all as public servants, and we should be appreciative of that. So with that, I wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving, and tune in soon with another edition. We'll be talking about the inauguration coming up. Before that, we'll be talking about Christmas at the White House. We'll be talking about presidential appointments and transitions. So there's a lot of things coming forward that you can look forward to, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget to like Bry, the Poli guy, on Facebook, which should be on the bottom of your screen, and tune back in. Thanks.